Hey everyone, this is Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and I'd like to welcome you to another devlog for my dream project, Willard. Been super encouraged by all the positive comments and the likes. Thanks so much for the support. Last video pushed me up past 150 subscribers, and I can't tell you how encouraging it is to log on and see that somebody else has liked a video or left me an encouraging note. But let's get to the devlog. At its very core, Willard is a story about belief. Not the Disney princess believe in yourself kind of belief. Willard is about believing in something bigger than yourself. It's about making sure of what you believe in and being willing to hold to it, even when it costs you everything. Willard grew up in a traveling carnival in the care of his father, Garen, an entertainer who wowed crowds with his ability to summon and manipulate flame. Although Garen was not always a good man, he was a devoted father who loved his son, and he raised Willard in the disciplines and liturgy of the flame god. Now, all of this would be pretty standard fantasy fare. However, Willard inhabits a world that does not have magic, and Willard seems to be the only one who does not know this. On the night of the cataclysm, as monsters invaded the carnival, Garen was cut down where he stood, without so much as a flicker of flame upon his fingers. Willard only escaped with his life that night because of the help of a family friend, Cedric, a cook at the carnival, who snuck Willard out of the camp and set him out to sea in a rowboat. Now, landing on a strange continent that seems also to have been leveled by the same cataclysm that took his home, Willard must choose his path. What will he believe in? Does his destiny lie in the lives of those he can save? If so, he can build a new home with them and work to carve out a meaningful existence, watching as his growing village thrives despite the ashes from which it came. Will he find meaning as a warrior general? The world is not a safe place, and Willard's new village will need stout defenses and a ready garrison if it is to survive future incursions. Or will Willard's path connect him to something more ancient? He doesn't care whether the world believes in magic, but he does want to know whether the father he always looked up to was a fraud. There are still many unexplained things in the world, and perhaps the answers lie in those majestic peaks looming just out of reach. Exploring the mountains will certainly unlock many secrets, but you can be sure not all of those revelations will be welcome ones. That's the premise of Willard. If you've ever had people think you're crazy for believing in something, then you can probably identify with Willard. He doesn't want to believe a lie, but he also doesn't want to give up his deeply held beliefs just because people tell him he's crazy for believing in them. So, what have I been up to since last time? Good question. The 25-kilometer trail race, a 6-day road trip to Whitehorse with my son, but in between, I did find a lot of time for development. I knew this devlog would be focused on characters and story, so I invested a lot of time in creating assets this time around. My pixel art has improved a lot since I started this project, but I've always found character art to be the most challenging. A couple months back I got super sick, and while I was lying on the couch, shivering and sweating and mostly just wanting to die, I decided to pass the time by doing a deep dive into character art. I'll post some of the links that I found helpful in the discussion. Sadly, what I learned from this exploration is that there is no trick to being good at character art. I emerged from my practice with this guy, and to be honest, I wasn't even good at making him. It literally took me hours to create all the different animation poses. So I've been pretty much avoiding character art ever since then. But this week, I knew I had to get back at it. I found that with almost anything, whether it's trail running, coding, playing an instrument, or whatever, the only way to get better is to practice. So this week, I did. I started with my original character and decided to try to make some variations. My first attempt took hours, and I ended up with this guy. He's not too bad. He's kind of cute, and I have to admit I was pretty proud of my work. At this point, though, I decided I needed a challenge, something to keep me focused. So what if I created one character every day for a week? Surely I'd see a lot of improvement. I got to it, and to be honest, I did see a lot of improvement. After a couple of days, I started experimenting with trying to give my sprites a little bit more character.
Although I was still working from my original character sprite, I began looking up reference images. A tip, if you type in RPG and then whatever character you want, knight, merchant, carpenter, etc., you can find a lot of great inspirations.
Honestly, I can't believe I didn't think of using reference pictures earlier. It just made my job so much easier because I didn't have to stop and think about what angle to put arms at and that sort of thing. It also helped me to add a lot more personality and character to the sprites that I was working on.
So early on, I decided I wanted to make characters with more diverse body types. One of Willard's good friends in the story is a guy that I've always pictured as a sort of heavyset, fun-loving dude. I tried taking my first character sprite and just sort of rounding it out a bit. It kind of worked, but I wasn't totally satisfied with the results. So when I took my next stab at it, I decided to fully redesign the character model. I started with the head and then created an actual body model to match it. At that point, I looked up some reference images so that I could make things like hair, clothes, add in his backpack and his belt and that sort of thing. I have to admit, this guy's definitely my favorite so far.
For my next devlog, I want to get serious about puzzle creation and making some levels that people can actually play. To do this, I'm going to have to add some vertical layers to my levels. I've already been working on creating some scaffolding so that players can move upward and down and create some more opportunity for puzzles. I've also done a little work retooling my character movement. Turns out that real-life physics suck for video games. One of the changes I've had to make is slowing my player down a bit, but also halting his velocity every time he lands so that he's not sliding after he lands on a platform. Essentially, make him behave a little more like an Olympic gymnast landing a jump than an actual person like me trying to jump and land. All in all, it felt like a super productive 2 weeks. I got some amazing footage from my trip up to the Yukon that I can't wait to translate into some new levels in the future. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you're enjoying the devlog and you haven't already done so, please be sure to click like or subscribe to the channel, as it's really encouraging. Until next time, this is Matt with Night Run Studio. Cheers.